Hey everybody, here we are at the Louisiana Capitol in the Rotunda. I am with Jack McFarland, State Rep. Thank you so much for being with me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, William. Thank you for having me back.
Well, you know, I've always appreciated what you're doing. You do a lot of work for the roads department. You're in is it transportation or what's your committee?
I'm chairman of the House Ag Committee.
Okay.
But coming from local government, I've always been a big proponent of roads and bridges. Typically, that's the most need there is in a rural community where I represent. So often I'm always involved in the decisions on how we're going to find more funding for roads and bridges.
I like hearing that because I'm tired of going badoom 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 down the road there. Well, before we get, I got your legislation right here. You got HB 33, which modifies structural pest control provisions.
That was an agency bill. It's just simply changing the time that a member that serves on that pest control board, instead of serving a one-year term, they'll serve a 4-year term along with the Commissioner of Ag.
That's pretty simple.
Yeah, it's cleanup.
HB 270. I like when people say cleanup because we got so much stuff in our Constitution, you know, in our legislation that it just needs cleaning up. But I like that you're doing that.
Well, what was going on was we were appointing people for one-year terms, and so every year you're having to appoint someone else.
Right.
So just put them on there the same to run concurrent with the Commissioner of Ag, and we don't have to reappoint someone every year.
Is there a way to remove them during that 4 years if there's a problem?
It is a way.
Oh, yeah, so it makes sense. It's all good. Cut some red tape.
Just because you get put on the board don't mean you get to stay on the board.
I'm liking that. We got HB 384 provides relative to the Louisiana renewable energy development.
That was some cleanup language as well. We had a piece of legislation I passed last year on the Louisiana Renewable Energy Act, and there was some wording that we had to correct, and it was a technical amendment, but still it has to be done correctly.
Well, like I said, once again, trying to get into the nuts and bolts is what keeps Louisiana running smooth.
It is, and sometimes you don't recognize that there was a flaw until after the legislation's passed, and even though we have several staff attorneys that read it, they reread it, it's went through multiple times, but you know, just one of those things that sometimes you have to come back and continue to work at it.
Is that one of those cases where you have to pass it to see what's in it?
No, that's not one of them.
That's not you. That's how it got there.
Oh, yeah.
But you saw what's in it, and now you're cleaning it up.
I'm cleaning it up.
I'm loving it. 434 provides relative to the state medical assistance program.
That's a piece of legislation I actually passed 6 years ago. It's called Act 710. What it is to ensure that all the dollars that Louisiana is spending on managed care, on Medicaid, to make sure that we're getting the best value for our dollar. So it's a report that's required for LDH to assemble and present to joint budget, the health and welfare committees in the Senate and the House on Medicaid reporting.
It connects a lot of dots, sounds to me.
Hey, the devil's in the details, and that's where I like to get.
I love the fact that you're worried about fixing that up. 502 modifies the definition of the term commercial farmer by removing certain reporting requirements.
So we're doing this to encourage more individuals to get into the farming industry in the United States, but more specifically in Louisiana. We've had a couple requirements that made it a little arduous for new farmers to get in. So one of them was a tax issue. It's called a Schedule F form. So farmers are eligible for a tax exemption, but they have to be there for 1 year. Well, so you're telling me that all the farmers that's here can already get the exemption, but a new farmer can't get the exemption for a year? So I'm removing that requirement to encourage new farming.
I want to be a farmer one day, so help me out.
Get your green thumb.
Did you know that I grow pineapples?
See, there you are.
I have 300 pineapple bushes.
Well, maybe you need to bring some.
Yeah, I might. Oh, there you go. I might have to do that. So 573 provides relative to prohibited provisions in certain public contracts.
Once again, that's a cleanup language bill. A judge had, in my opinion, misinterpreted what the law was stating. So we worked with architects and engineers, and we're coming back to clarify in law language that what we believe the judicial system overstepped, and sometimes you catch the judicial system overreaching its authority, and we believe that they misinterpreted, so we're coming back clarifying.
I'm loving it. 634 provides relative to a severance tax exemption for a deep well oil and gas production.
So in Louisiana, unfortunately, to encourage more offshore drilling and production, We've offered on your first 2 years, you get a tax exemption on your oil and gas severance tax. Now, what had happened was the Department of Natural Resources was saying, okay, the exemption begins now and ends at this date. Well, the exemption was intended to begin when you actually began production. So you go out, you drill a well, you find oil, but you got to cap it until you get all the pipeline, all the infrastructure out there, and that may take 1 to 2 years. Well, what was happening to our deep well water oil rigs was they were losing all their time of tax exemption while they were preparing to produce.
I gotcha.
So we just cleaned up the legislation.
So this helps. This makes it to where they don't have to pay the severance tax, which is money that goes to the local community, correct, or the parish.
Well, now this is different. This oil and gas severance tax is only for deep well oil rigs that are 15,000 feet deep.
Okay, all right. So it doesn't go to anybody but the state.
Only goes to the state.
Okay, I gotcha. So it doesn't affect the parish. That's good. It doesn't affect the people's local
That's right.
areas. I like that. 634, that was the severance tax. We got 638 provides relative to tax benefits for adoption of children from foster care and donations.
So last year we passed a piece of legislation with a $500,000 maximum. You're not eligible for $500,000. The maximum tax credit is $50,000. But if you make a tax donation to a foster care organization, they have to be licensed and qualified, then you're eligible for a tax credit. Well, unfortunately, the Department of Revenue wrote the rules and made them so arduous that nobody was eligible. So I came back, I eased the rules and regulations so that now qualified foster care individuals or homes, when they offer their services to a child, now if an individual wants to make a tax donation and utilize it as a tax credit, they can.
I like this, but this to me is one of those good things that supports life, a pro-life agenda.
It is.
You know, without getting into freedoms and liberties on either side, or pro-choice or pro-life advocates, this is something that I think solves problems in that gray area that nobody else addresses, and I appreciate that you addressed it.
Well, you know, we have a shortfall for foster homes. We don't have enough foster homes for all the children, and unfortunately there are a lot of children in Louisiana that find themselves in foster care. So those are very needy children. So to encourage these foster homes, we came up with an idea of how to create a tax credit so that if rather than you giving the state in taxes that you owe, then you can give to the foster care organization.
I like that. And it's not money paid to them, it's just money that they don't have to pay.
That's money they don't have to pay.
I like that. You got HCR 54 designates Wednesday, April 26th as Louisiana Loggers Day.
Now, we had a lot of HCRs this year recognizing Loggers Day. We recognized 4-H. We recognized FFA. We even had a young man out of Ringo, Louisiana, who received really a tremendous award. And so, you know, one of the things we do as a legislature is we like to recognize those groups and individuals, and that's our way of doing it.
I love it. HR 6 designates Thursday, April 13th as 4-H Day. Agricultural thing, right?
It is.
I like that. HR 41 commends and regulates Mr. Antaviante Moore, am I saying that wrong, for being the recipient of the Truman Scholarship?
That's right. And there's only 6 of those given out in the country. And we had an individual, a young man, very bright young man, who received that award right here in Louisiana.
And see, the reason why I'm asking about that on my show is that if the legislature is going to acknowledge them, I like to do the same thing on my show. And your last one's 43, which designates Thursday, May 4th, as FF Day. Is that Future Farmers of America?
Future Farmers of America.
I love this. Now, are any of these? So none of these bills sound like they're the hot topics of the day when you watch the evening news and you're watching the committees get packed with protesters. None of these sound really like that.
No, they're not. A lot of the bills I brought this year were clean-up pieces of legislation, things that needed to be corrected, or even things that need to be updated. Some things need to be simplified. So I spent my efforts this year cleaning up our past, I hate to say fallacies, but cleaning up mistakes and other areas where we could do a little bit better job of improving our legislation.
I like the fact that it's not new legislation, it's cleanup. So speaking of new legislation though, I've heard that, that there's some legislation that I would support, not brought by anybody legislator, this is just simply coming from me. Would you support legislation that would make the legislators update their pictures on the legislative site for in Louisiana?
Yeah,
because some of these pictures look like they're still in high school, and doesn't look like anything like that. Would you support that kind of legislation?
I would, because if you looked at my picture from 8 years ago, I still had blonde hair, no beard. Today I have gray hair and gray beard.
And all of this debating going on the House floor, I think they could debate a chicken sandwich if you let them.
Yeah.
Would you advocate for a legislation that would designate a state sandwich?
I would advocate for legislation for the 3-minute rule all the time.
Okay. So you're cutting me out on what the state sandwich would be then?
Yes, I am.
I can't. All right, I'll take that one. Anything else that you want to do on a positive note to end this video or this interview that you think brings more people together? We're seeing a lot of division on some things. What do you think would bring more people together?
If you even just like some of the legislation I have, especially with the foster care children, those are things that we can all sit down and say, hey, that's what we're here for. Government's here to provide a service. It's not here to create large bank accounts. It's here simply to provide a service for the people. These are young people that are very needy and at a vulnerable time in their life. And so that's the type of legislation that, one, it makes me feel good, but I know that I'm doing the right thing when I advance legislation like that.
It supports life.
It does.
I appreciate it. Representative McFarland, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Everybody else, please share the interview, and we got some more coming up. Thank you all very much.